Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. Patty Vasquez. Weeknights 5 to 7 on WCPT 820.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brad Siegel. Jimmy Buffett has died. The singer-songwriter, best known for his iconic hit Margaritaville, was forced to cancel his tour this year due to health concerns. Buffett said he always considered himself a road performer and had a cult-like legion of fans known as Parrot Heads. His website says he died peacefully Friday night. No cause of death was revealed. He was 76. Police in Ohio releasing body cam footage of an officer-involved shooting that left a pregnant woman dead. Jim Forbes has more.
The incident happened last Thursday outside a Kroger store in Columbus when 21-year-old Takaya Young, who is black, was approached by police on suspicion of shoplifting.
Shots fired! Stop the car! Stop the car!
She allegedly drove directly towards an officer who fired one shot through Takaya's front windshield. She died a short time later, and her baby did not survive. 2 officers involved are on paid administrative leave while an investigation continues. I'm Jim Forbes.
The Atlantic Coast Conference will expand to the Pacific Coast, adding Pac-12 members Cal and Stanford. California Athletic Director Jim Knowlton is optimistic about the impact the ACC's media rights deal will have on the program's future.
Feels like we're putting ourselves in a place that's going to allow us to be successful for the long term.
ACC presidents and chancellors voted Friday to add the California schools along with SMU from the American Conference. The mother of a child killed in the Uvalde, Texas school shooting last year is running for mayor. Kimberly Maida Rubio is expected to launch her campaign today for the special election in November. Maida Rubio's 10-year-old daughter was one of 21 people who died when a gunman opened fire at Robb Elementary School. She's looking to replace Mayor Don McLaughlin, who is running for the Texas legislature. Brad Siegel, NBC News Radio.
WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. See how ComEd is preparing our public schools for a clean energy future at ComEd.com/public schools.
When you leave the office, catch up on what you missed on the way home with Patty Vasquez. Weekday afternoons from 5 to 7.
Because we have so much to talk about every day.
Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez.
And as you would imagine, that would mean that folks want to call in and join the conversation.
Only on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. You've been working hard all day and didn't have time to catch up on the news during work.
And that phone just wouldn't stop.
We've got you covered. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
We will fight as many places and as many times as it takes to get this power back.
Joan Esposito, afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. WCPT 820. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez.
Marjorie Trader Green said all the things that we want to do. We want to eradicate poverty. We want to invest in education. We want to invest in infrastructure. We want to strengthen labor unions. They think that's evil. If you're listening, if you hate listening to this, explain it to me. Please explain it to me. Explain why those things are evil.
Patty Vasquez, weeknights 5 to 7 on WCPT 820.
WCPT 820 is seeking a highly motivated part-time radio sales executive to generate revenue for the station by establishing long-term business relationships with new clients and maintain or nourish current business relationships. We're looking for someone who passionately believes in the progressive mission, celebrates inclusion, appreciates our unique platform, and would enjoy representing Chicago's Progressive Talk. Please email your resume to jobs@WCPT820.com. No phone calls, please. NewsWeb Radio Company is an equal opportunity workplace and is an affirmative action employer.
This is a national healthcare alert from the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one has diabetes, listen closely. Now, regardless of your age, if you have insurance, you may qualify to receive diabetic testing supplies with little to no out-of-pocket cost. Get free delivery, free information, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers for free. Call the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline now for details. Toll free at this number. But wait, there's more. If you call right now, you could get a meter upgrade. In addition, we'll give you a free pair of diabetic socks as our special gift to you. Regardless of your age, if you suffer with diabetes and have insurance, you may qualify to get free delivery of your supplies.
800-442-0819, 800-442-0819, 800-442-0819. That's 800-442-0819.
Are you working way too hard for way too little? There's never been a better time to consider a career in IT. You could enjoy a recession-resistant career in a rewarding field with plenty of growth opportunities and often flexible work environments. Go to My Computer Career and take the free career evaluation. You could start your new career in months, not years. Take classes online or on campus, and financial aid is available to qualified students, including the GI Bill. Now is the time. mycomputercareer.edu.
The following program, Real Estate Radio, is sponsored by Trusted Agent USA, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist Larry Shakman, a top producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Real Estate Radio with my buddy Dylan Kramer from Benchmark Mortgage.
Hey, Larry, how are you today?
Doing awesome. We got Devin and our intern on the board. She is
Stephanie.
Yeah. Stephanie, crazy enough to go into the radio business. So good luck, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm just glad you remembered her name this time.
Well, it takes me like 4 times before I remember someone's name.
I like that it's 4 times you're only in sales.
I remember your name.
Took you a while, but it's all right.
Hey, everybody.
What do we got, man? We
are, first of all, very happy to have you joining us today. Happy Labor Day weekend. And, I hope you guys, as always, are set up for a great weekend on your jet skis or golfing, losing golf balls out there somewhere.
And finding real estate deals.
We have a great topic we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about house hacking. And there's a couple of different ways we're going to focus on today that you could do house hacking and actually pretty much live in your home for free, right?
Yeah, I think
close to it.
It's great. You're absolutely right, Larry. I think we'll break it down in detail as we go over the next hour. I'm excited that it's just going to be you and I today, and we're going to kind of riff on this topic for the hour. I know that we normally bring guests in and talk about ways that they can help in the real estate transaction, but I think today we're going to take a bigger view of the whole thing and really talk about where our expertise comes into play, both in terms of finding and then financing places or transactions that can really win for you financially in the long run.
Yeah. Actually, I have a place in Chicago that's a little overpriced right now, but once we get it to the right price, it would be a perfect place for a house hack.
That's awesome.
So we could talk a little bit about that. As always, my name's Larry Shakman. I am the real estate therapist. Our couch is open for the next hour, so we're going to put you in a place of real estate zen. Right, Devin? No? Maybe?
Nice.
Devin is breathing deeply and
we seem to be a little more casual on the holiday weekend vibe here in the studio.
Yeah, well, listen, you gotta take it easy.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
I've been a real estate broker for 23 years. I've been an investor, mentor, patient, all that good stuff. So real estate is one of those markets that ebbs and flows, and we're ebbing and flowing right now.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. I think that, it's funny you mentioned how long you've been in the business, and I've been in it a long time too. And the funny thing is that we're in a window where the history doesn't always repeat itself, but man, it rhymes.
It rhymes. Yeah, exactly. Now listen, you guys, this is a full contact sport, so we have Devin on the board, and you guys give us a call at 773-763-9278. You can text us at that number again. I'll repeat it one more time, 773-763-9278. Text or call us with any questions on house hacking, investing, whatever may be going on in your real estate life. Let us know. Maybe we can help you out. And like I said, we'll be talking a little bit later about a property I have in, well, not me personally, but I have listed in the city that, like I said, is a little overpriced right now, but is a really good option for a house hack. And we'll talk about some other ways you could hack, quote unquote, houses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that house hacking really is become people just use that phrase all the time, right? Like, hey, and it's come to kind of mean, hey, I'm getting a deal on real estate. And there's so much more to it than that in the true definition of house hacking. And when you do it right, the opportunity to make real money exists, and it doesn't really matter whether that's monthly rental money or that's appreciation. The opportunities are really in both places. So I'm excited to dig into this topic today.
Yeah. Hey, guys, also, if you want to see us, if you really need to see us live, if that's something you need this morning, you can, of course, number one, you can listen to us on 820 AM WCPT, and we're happy to have you all here that are out there. But you could also watch us live on Facebook at WCPT 820 and on YouTube at Larry Shakman, LarryShakman, or The Real Estate Therapist _ on TikTok. So check us out. We're going to be talking about some really cool things today. Before we go any further, I just want to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, of course, Benchmark Mortgage, Dylan Kramer.
Near and dear to my heart.
Dylan, always great to have you here. And if someone wants to talk to you about possibly financing a house hack, a 3-flat, a single-family home that they're going to, rehab and live in for a little while and then sell, how do they get in touch with you?
The best way to get a hold of me is you can call or text 630-708-7088. Again, that's 630-708-7088. And I or somebody on my team is readily available to talk about this stuff. We put it together a pre-approval for a guy who's out shopping this weekend, and he's a veteran and he's looking to buy a multi-unit, and so today's topic's relevant in the current market that exists out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So also I want to thank At Home Title Services. Remember, if you are a licensed real estate broker and you want to increase the menu of services that you offer your sellers and increase your bottom line, you need to become a registered or title agent. And this is important because you can't sell a house without providing free and clear title, right?
Absolutely.
So if you could offer this service to your sellers and increase your bottom line at the same time and have control, a little more control over the whole transaction on behalf of your seller, it's a win-win-win for everybody. Or is it just a win-win?
Can you say winning too much when everybody in the transaction is winning?
Winning, yeah. So, athometitleservices.com. Go there and sign up for their next virtual event and find out how to become a title agent and offer those services to your seller. Also, I want to thank, of course, Trusted Agent USA, trustedagentUSA.com will save you money working with the top performing agents in your area, whether you're buying, selling, or investing. So check out trustedagentUSA.com. And so, Dylan, today we are going to talk about house hacking. explain for everybody what exactly is the definition of house hacking.
So, Larry, the broadest definition of house hacking is that it's a real estate investment strategy that allows you to, in essence, leverage the financing strategies associated with whatever your real estate agenda is in order to make the traditional real estate purchase of, hey, I'm just going to qualify for my mortgage, I'm going to buy a house and just make my payment every month, seem expensive by comparison, right? And so there are a handful of different ways to do that. I think the two that we're going to talk about today are the strategy of living and flipping the house over the course of a year. Living in the house, as you're, and flipping it down the road, right? Shorthand, that strategy is known as the live and flip, which kind of combines both the financial house hack and the fix and flip investing. And in the broadest stroke of that, you can buy a house for as little, using an FHA loan, as little as 3.5% down. There are some conventional programs for 3% down, usually 5%. And if you live in it for a year, you can then turn around and sell it or keep it and then go get your next property from there, depending on what the strategy with your real estate professional is, right? So your financing strategy can be 5% down, whether you keep it or whether you don't, and what you do with that house while you own it to enhance value is really a key element of that, right? So for me, the key to that live and flip strategy is the idea that you can turn around and you can jump in for, let's say, 5% down or less, or 5% total, even if you put 3 and you bring your closing costs or whatever the case is. But that puts you in a situation where you can effectively take control of a property. For example, a $300,000 property, you can have as little as $15,000, maybe even a little less, and take control of that property. And now the question is, what do you do with it? So my question for you, Larry, is let's talk a little bit about the type of houses that could be targets for people to live and flip.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of flips. Okay, and I've done them in various areas: St. Charles, Geneva, Streamwood, Hanover Park. I haven't really ventured into the city to do flips because the city of Chicago can be a bear to deal with. But it can be very lucrative. The flips I've done in the past have typically taken from the time we buy the property, close on it, rehab it, put it on the market it, and sell it. You're typically talking about probably around 4 to 6 months. And I would say in reality, 5 to 6 months.
So in a situation where we're talking about house hacking, that's less of a strategy, right? So, and I think what I hear you saying is, look, if you're an investor, if you're working with a team, you're going to be in this 4 to 6 month range, and it's going to take that long. However, if you're looking at a live and flip, and you're going to be a live and flip investor, well, once you've identified a property and you get closed, you have a little more time because, again,
you're living there.
You're living there.
Your primary residence.
Let's say you closed yesterday, September 1st, right? Because it's a good calendar day to pick that idea. So you find yourself in a situation where until next September 1st, you can't really go get owner-occupied financing again for 5% down. So you're kind of, quote-unquote, stuck, although for a year. And that doesn't put it means that if you got the right deal on the house, you can take your time to hire the most affordable combination or the best value contractors, right? Because when you're in a flip situation, you're like, we have to get these cabinets out of here because we're trying to get out in 90 days or 120 days, right? 4 to 6 months and make it happen. But if you've got a full year, you're like, oh, well, you can't get in. You're like, you could give me a deal if you come in 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Great. Well, let's plan for that, right? And then you can work with the contractors to fill their gaps in their schedule with your work because you're not in that hurry again.
And if you're handy, you can do some of that work yourself.
Absolutely. Although everybody's handiness, I would tell you,
have to be
has a scope, right? And so although there's certainly a lot of opportunity to expand your skills and whatever that is, but no matter how you do it, whether you do that work yourself, and again, if you do that work yourself and you take your time and you're learning new skills or expanding your skills, whether you have some basic plumbing skills and you learn some basic carpentry or vice versa, the idea of spending that time, investing that time in the property rehab allows you to do that while you live there. So again, I know we talked in the pre-show, Larry, but I think it's time to have this discussion here. Let's talk about the math in terms of identifying a price that you could pay for a house that would be a good target to live in for a year and do some rehab work too. So you remember the conversation from the other day, right? So let's revisit that here for the wider audience.
Okay, so before we get into the math, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. I want to talk about, because I do want to get into the math of it, and I want to get into the other type of very popular house hack, and that is a 2, 3, or 4 flat where you live in one of the units and rent out the other 2 or 3, depending on the footprint of the property.
You bet. We'll spend some time on that as well.
All right, guys, so we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back with Real Estate Radio.
Tune in to Real Estate Radio Saturdays at 9 a.m. hosted by the real estate therapist Larry Shakman, a top-producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com. Top-performing agents for 2% commission, saving you thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Real Estate Radio, the ultimate real estate radio experience. Get insider tips from experts throughout the real estate industry. Streaming live on Facebook at WCPT 820. Trusted Agent USA Illinois, license number 475145795. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio, sponsored in part by TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, saving you thousands. Now back to Larry, the real estate therapist.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and we are happy to have you here, so thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio. We're going to quickly go over some of the current market conditions, and real quickly, Dylan, what are rates looking like right now without dwelling on it, but what are we looking at?
We had a really good week in rates. I know the last couple of weeks that we've been talking, we're like, hey, rates are getting worse. Hey, rates look like there is this inflection point where they might get significantly worse from here. They actually got nicely better this week. So we're probably 7.25-ish, 7% even, versus 7.5 or above last week. In the grand scheme of things, for your best qualified buyers with your highest credit scores and your biggest down payments, you're closer to 7 than 7.5 this week after a few things. Some was trading activity, but then also the unemployment numbers that were released yesterday were very helpful to the market.
Which we'll get to, because some things happened that I think are going to maybe give the feds pause for thought in terms of raising their rate. And we'll see, but because, we'll see where the economy goes. But
sure.
For the first time in 3 weeks, new listings actually rose, which is good, but at the same time, more houses on the market went pending and came under contract. So we're still really in that same position of a very tight inventory out there. So
tell me what you think caused that, Larry, because my knee-jerk reaction is, hey, you know what? Everybody kind of got back from sending their kids back to school and back from vacation, and they're like, okay, well, now let's get serious about this house situation. Am I reading that right? Is that a fair?
It could be, but, like we always say, it is impossible to predict, because did anyone see that coming? That all of a sudden, out of the blue, in September, right after kids went back to school, and people are settled, that new listings would rise. So it's hard to predict the real estate market, but I think you might have a point. Some people got settled and decided, hey, it's time to do it.
Seems fair.
So that might be one of them. Some of the new numbers that came out recently in terms of the labor market cooling a little bit, in terms of wages not spiking so much, is leading me, and let me know what you think about this, is leading me to believe that the Feds hopefully maybe will not raise their rate at their next meeting.
You know, I think that we had an interesting set of numbers and come out yesterday. And so, you know, the Bureau of Labor Statistics yesterday reported $187,000 or 187,000 jobs created in August, which was slightly better than the estimates of 170,000. But remember, Larry, a year ago, we were having job figures every month in the 400,000 range. So that's half, right? And so, even though it was better than estimates,
and to be expected, though.
Right, the trend is down. The other thing is, look, they've revised the numbers down. Right, they had a number in June that was 257,000 jobs, and they revised it to 105,000 or something like that. Those
did they revise it down that much?
Yeah.
No
so
kidding. Okay.
there was a lot of statistical. For lack of a better phrase, gerrymandering, right? Relative to the way they do the statistics, and that's
when they, a huge.
When they figure these job calculations, what they do is they do it statistically, right? They don't actually go how many jobs are there. The ADP number that came out on Wednesday, far more accurate in terms of actual people hired, because they are actually doing the payroll as a company for all these jobs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics does projections and statistical analysis, and they have, they literally overstate the number the last few months due to what's called the birth-death numbers. And so it calculates how many people are alive and therefore extrapolates how many people should be in the job market. Long story short, those numbers got revised down for the last 3 months, and so the big June numbers were not big at all, it turns out, in reality, after they get through the statistical analysis of what really happened. So the bottom line is the 3-month payroll average is now 150,000 jobs a month. The 6-month average is like 194,000 a month. But the economy thought, when rates were rising with a rocket ship, that we were averaging almost 400,000 jobs a month. It's just not true. So now the question is the economy slowing? And if it is, will that give the Fed an opportunity for pause? I think you make a good argument that could be happening.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It's hard to predict, but some of the economic signs are pointing in that direction. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I completely agree.
So we're going to get into the math on house hacking, but before we get into the math and get wonky on people here, I want to talk about the other type of house hack. So the two types of house hacks we're going to talk about today are the one we initially did, single-family home. You move in, you rehab it at your own pace, and you either stay there or you sell it or you rent it after a year.
Right.
The other type of house hack is with a 2, 3, or 4 flat. So let's explain how that works.
Yeah. So the cool thing, there's a financial thing. There's a handful of financial things. So let's just kind of spray to all fields, right? The multifamily house hack is the most popular house hack in the Chicago market as a target for first-time buyers, first-time investors, as well as often the most popular around the country. And it's because it's also possibly the most effective. So the reason is kind of multifaceted. The first one is, like we talked about earlier in the show, you can get a house under your control for as little as 3.5% to 5% down, depending on exactly where you're at. And that's a pre-approval process thing, but again, 3.5% or 5%. So at the end of the day, there are Chicago properties like City of Chicago proper, where 3 and 4 unit properties are almost $1 million. And for the right property, you could get that type of property under your control for 5% down. Now, is $50,000 a lot of money on $1 million property? Sure it is. Absolutely. However, in the grand scheme of things, if you're able to afford that, it can scale that high. So it doesn't really matter whether you're a buyer in that upper bracket or you're a buyer in the lower bracket. You're going to find yourself in a situation where you can get in for 5% down and now control 4 units. Well, if you're living in one and then you turn around and have the other 3 rented out, you have a couple of advantages. First, you can reduce your living expenses, right? The biggest advantage of the house hack is a dramatic reduction in your house payment. If you buy a single-family home, the payment's $3,000 a month. Well, you've got to pay $3,000 a month, come hell or high water, out of your income. However, if you house hack this and you do it effectively, let's say you do a 4-unit, well, now that 4-unit payment might be double. It might be $6,000 a month, but you may be able to rent all 3 apartments for $5,400 or $1,800 each. And now you're in a situation where you've collected $5,400 from your tenants and your payment is $6,000. Well, the gap or the delta that you need to fill with your own income is now $600, not $3,000, as if you bought a single family home. And so it reduces your expense, but it also reduces your risk, right? In terms of that.
More doors, less risk.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing is you build more equity, right? So at the end of the day, if I can afford if I can afford a $300,000 house, single family by myself, right, or a $400,000 house, but I can afford a $800,000 multi-unit. Well, if that property grows, if both properties grow in the current market, whatever that is, by 10%, my single family $400,000 house is worth $40,000 more, and that's great. But the multifamily $800,000 property is now worth $880,000 or $80,000 more. So the level of appreciation doubled. The other thing that you're capturing is the leverage. Because if you buy an $800,000 property and you put 5% down, well, you've put $40,000 down, right? And if it turns around and it goes to $880,000 in this 10% situation, well, now you've doubled your cash-on-cash return, right? And so it gives you tremendous leverage, and combined with that risk management that we just talked about, really puts you in a situation where you can dramatically cash flow this property and then turn around and do whatever you want to do with it going forward, right? You can either hang on to it and enjoy the tax benefits. You can depreciate that property over time. You can turn around and continue to rent it out and own it as a long-term investment. The other thing is that for most folks, living in a multi-unit is not the play for the long run, right? There's a certain peace of mind that comes with living in a single-family property. So if you hacked 1 or 2 multi-units over the course of a couple of years and lived in them, fixed them up, got the rents where you want them, etc., you could find yourself in a situation where you now have 6, 8, 10 doors under your control, and now that additional income, instead of having maybe to fund the gap between your monthly mortgage commitment and the rents grow over time. And so if your payment stays the same, or as we've talked about on this show previously, you end up in a situation where you control the house today, but in a year or 2 or 5, you end up in a situation where the value is up and rates are down. You could cut the payment dramatically and move that money into your pocket every month.
Absolutely.
Seamless to the tenants, right? Yeah. And so it's a win across the board. You can literally scale it to large real estate investments over time, but you have to build your base somewhere, right? Nobody can get into deals for $2 or $3 or $5 million for $50,000 in cash. But at the end of the day, if you can get yourself into a couple of house hacking situations over the course of the next 2 years, which is easily doable. We've done this you've done it for clients, I've done it for clients, we've done it for clients together. It's an easy to do thing if you have the right team on board. Well, now if you wake up and you have $500,000 or $600,000 in equity 5 years from now, in theory, are you an attractive investor to parlay that into a much larger investment, absolutely you are.
Yeah. So in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 months, I have sold 2, 3, and 4 flats to younger, a younger person, if you will, in their late 20s to mid 30s,
right?
Where they bought the property. The 2 flat was in Joliet. They bought the 2 flat. They moved into one of the apartments. They're renting the other unit out, which was way undervalued in terms of its rent, and
right.
They had to raise the rent.
Sure.
But they rented that unit out, and now they're building equity in that before they move on. I sold a 3 flat in Inglewood. Same thing. Somebody came in and bought it, rented out one of the units, rented out 2 of the units, moved into one, and on a 4 flat, same thing. So it's really, I think, catching on with a lot of people that this is something that is very positive for your financial outlook.
Well, not only is it positive, Larry, but I think that one of the things that happens is people say, well, maybe now's not the time, or maybe I'll wait, or maybe I won't buy because rates are up. We've heard that, right? So let me tell a story. So I'm working with another real estate broker who I work with quite a bit, and he has a client that we helped buy a multi-unit on the north side, Ravenswood-ish area. Couple 3 years ago, probably 2020-ish. So long story short, that guy had bought a 4-unit in addition to a single-family home and was and has been renting it out. And he took a job change, moved to Ohio, and has been there for a couple of years. Unfortunately, he's in a personal finance situation where he's getting divorced, and so they've decided that as part of the settlement, they're going to liquidate the properties. And because of that liquidation, I was introduced, because the house went on the market, I was introduced to one of the tenants who was like, hey, maybe I'll buy it, right? And one of the things, and we've talked about it twice here today, and this is where I'm going with this in terms of urgency, this guy was of the opinion that he's going to be able to maybe buy this house and kind of protect him and his friends in the building because they have a little community in the 4 units. And he's going to be able to hack the house and keep everybody in it and keep the rents the same. Well, we told him it was urgent to get his pre-approval, and we've had pre-approval urgency conversations before, so I don't want to beat that up too much here. But he and his co-tenants were paying under market rent for the current market. Now, because that property was financed in 2020, it still cash flowed because those rents were sufficient to meet that payment. But the new buyer's coming in, and he didn't do his pre-approval, so they put it under contract with somebody else because it went quick. And so because of that, he's closed, and he called me again this week, maybe 2.5 months after we spoke the first time. And now he's in a situation this week where they came in and they almost doubled his rent. And he's like, well, if I'm going to pay that, I could have just bought. I'm like, I know. Yeah. I told you. Yeah. But I don't want to be in an I told you so thing. What I want to express for the listeners is the idea here that if you're renting and you're under market, the market can move on you. Like, you're not in control of your real estate situation. It will move on you sooner or later. There's no question. Yeah. Look, the market will move to the correct rents, and that's what happened to this guy. And now he's out shopping for a property just like the one he lives in, but now he's got to move.
And that's what happened to these people in Joliet as well.
Yeah.
The rents were great. They were actually undervalued when they bought the property, and went up very little over the next few years. Right. But then somebody else buys the property, they have no choice but to raise those rents.
Absolutely. And that's reasonable. Look, there are lots of reasons if you've got good rent, a good rental rate on where you live now. There are lots of reasons that landlords will leave rents in place. because of the peace of mind, because if you've lived there for 5 years and you always pay your rent, it's not because they like you. It's because they like the consistency of your check showing up every month rather than vacancy, vetting somebody new, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all well and good. But turning our attention back to the investor, I think that it's really important to understand that being ready to move on that property and finding a property, when we're talking about the under market rents, it's really for you as an investor or potential investor, house hacker, important to find a property that has opportunity for you to increase value. How do you increase value? You increase value one of two ways. One, you add value through rehab, like we talked about a little bit earlier, whether that's a 1-unit or a multi-unit. So you come in, you modernize bathrooms, you update kitchens, you refinish wood floors, you get rid of the traditional joke of on the real estate side, the green appliances, right? All of that can add value.
The avocado appliances.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one is that you increase the actual hard cash flow of the property. And if you increase the actual hard cash flow of the property by raising rents, you can do that. I mean, there are other ways, and we've seen them, right, where people, especially with 4-unit machines that are 4-unit properties, you can bring in laundry machines and grab some revenue there.
Oh, yeah.
You can turn around, and if there's one boiler and one air conditioning system, you can meter those out to each individual unit and keep the rents the same and make those folks as your tenants pay for their individual consumption, which is usually smarter, but not all the buildings are set up like that. So there's lots of ways to increase cash flow as well.
Yeah.
And in theory, you could do both. But the most important thing is taking advantage of the rules of owner-occupied properties to access. And the biggest rule is, look, you just need to own it for a year, right? Like there's a bunch of, if you own properties longer and you've lived in them, there are rules around, hey, from a tax standpoint, you can sell them after 2 years and keep the profits tax-free. But that's a more advanced strategy. The thing we're talking about here today is, A, getting control of your real estate situation, right? If you're renting, to turn around and, in essence, use a few bucks, 5% of a purchase price, which is the kind of rule of thumb that we're using to access that multifamily, is a readily available strategy.
So check this out. These multifamily properties that I've sold in the last 4 to 5 months, every one of them sold to an FHA buyer, 3.5% down. So they're getting control of a building, 2, 3, or 4 units for 3.5% down, and they're getting their tenants to essentially pay down their mortgage.
Yeah.
And they're getting in at 3.5%. So I know on conventional we're talking probably 5%, but on with using FHA or VA, even lower.
Well, that brings me to the guy that we were talking about this week. So we have a veteran home buyer that was introduced to us, and I'm always here to serve the veterans and help them get through. And so this gentleman had been through divorce and was looking to turn around and kind of reboot, and is looking for a 2-unit. And so we did his pre-approval, and he had one quirk in the regulations, right? So normally in a VA, when you take advantage of your VA home loan benefit as a veteran, you can come in and you can buy for no money down. Here, you can buy for no money down in a multi-unit situation, but you have to have a few months of cash in the bank after you close. So even though you can buy no money down, you can't have $0 in the bank. And so it took us a couple of days to vet that out, but he was able to use his 401k and some other retirement money to show us that he has the cash in reserve to make those payments if he has a tenant problem. And so he's out literally now shopping for his multi-unit with his agent.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys are looking for an investment property, give me a call, 630-921-0611. I work with a lot of investors. There's a lot of opportunities out there for these kinds of purchases. And give me a call, and Dylan can finance it, and we can get you guys in.
Can they text you, Larry?
By the way, text me today. Text me right now or call us at, Dylan, what's the number?
630.
No, what's the number here?
Oh, the number here. Yeah, no, if you have questions about what we're talking about here today and you want to talk about house hacking on the air in the last 15 minutes, call us at 773-763-9278. We're happy to talk about all things house hacking today.
Yeah, and you guys can text us there as well, and you can, again, call me directly if you're looking for an investment opportunity. I was one of the largest REO brokers when we went through that horrible spell through about 2008 to 2017, so I've worked with a lot of investors on both sides of the deal, whether it be them purchasing or selling off part of their inventory. But if you're looking to purchase and get into real estate investing, give me a call, 630-921-0611. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk more house hacking.
Tune in to Real Estate Radio Saturdays at 9 a.m. hosted by the real estate therapist Larry Shakman, a top-producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com. Top-performing agents for 2% commission, saving you thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Real Estate Radio, the ultimate real estate radio experience. Get insider tips from experts throughout the real estate industry. Streaming live on Facebook at WCPT 820. Trusted Agent USA Illinois, license number 475-145795. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio, sponsored in part by TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, saving you thousands. Now back to Larry, the real estate therapist.
All right, you guys, thanks for joining us again this Saturday, this Labor Day weekend. I hope you guys are all out there enjoying yourself. By the way, if you go, this is going to be some shameless promotion, Dylan.
Yep.
Sorry.
I'm here for it.
Okay, thank you. If you go to TrustedAgentUSA.com, you can purchase this book, The Top 10s of Real Estate. This is a new book I've written. It's going to give you 32 proven top 10 real estate lists to increase or maximize your profit when you buy, sell, or invest. And you'll find a lot of information in here. So go there and check it out and get into the real estate investing business because it's out there, it's happening, people are doing it. And let's continue on with how exactly and the math behind all of this. So
sure.
We talked about FHA being, you can get in on some of these properties for 3.5% down.
Absolutely.
What else as far as financing goes?
Well, I think that's it. Look, the biggest thing is that you can get in for 3.5% down. But we've heard you've heard me talk, but I'm going to say I think it's relevant to say it again here. All mortgages for the people who put up the 96.5% of the money, if you put 3.5% down, it's an investment to them, right? So they vet that investment by looking at three really kind of broad pillars of information, right? Everything that you get asked for. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of loose ends and details in the mortgage process, right? From verifications of employment to tax return analysis to asking for your W-2s or your pay stubs and all that stuff. But all of those questions fall under only one of three areas. Area number one is your credit worthiness, right? So your credit score is shorthand for that, but there are lots of ways to prove credit worthiness in addition to a credit score. Number two is what's called your equity in the property or your down payment. And then we say equity in the property because in a refinance situation, which we've talked about potentially refinancing these properties down the road, the equity in the house is the difference between the value of that property and the amount of the new loan. And then the third and final thing is what's called your debt to income ratio. And it basically is, hey, what are the payments that you're going to be committed to once the new mortgage is closed versus your documentable income, right? And so there's a lot of calculations that go into that, which is why we ask for pay stubs and information about commissions and bonuses and all that sort of stuff. But you might say to yourself, well, that's a long explanation. You haven't really told us anything yet. And the answer is I wanted to tee that up because when you're house hacking and you're looking at multi-unit properties, you have the opportunity, depending on the product and the guidelines, to use the rents that exist or in some cases could exist if a unit is vacant to qualify for the new mortgage. Now, those are subject to rules and details that have to be kind of gone through in the pre-approval process, so I'm not going to detail them because every situation is unique on the radio. But it's a valuable thing to do to qualify for the property. So you may say, well, I can't afford this much. You don't have to qualify for that whole payment on your own. The rents exist. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA understand that those rents exist and will exist in a real estate market, in a healthy real estate market. And because of that, you can use those rents or portions of those rents to qualify.
So let's say somebody's buying a 4-flat and he's going to live in one of the units. 2 of them are rented. 1 of them is vacant. He can use the rent that he's going to be getting on that vacant property.
In addition to the existing rents.
Of course.
Yes.
But he can use that vacant property
Absolutely.
and include that into the analysis of his whole situation.
Yeah, that's a more pre-approval level conversation, so I don't want to go deeper than that here in terms of the rules around that. But the short answer is yes, you can use that vacant unit rent or potential rent as part of your qualifying.
Yeah, well, that's important to keep in mind because they're not always all rented out.
So I think that the thing we've tried to talk about over the course of this hour, Larry, we're getting to the last 10 minutes of the show, is that this is a doable thing, and it's more achievable than folks think. I think when they're sitting there on their couch kind of lamenting, hey, you know what, I don't know where to start. I'd like to be in the real estate thing. I know people, you know. It's important to take action, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I would put this out there. I know you put the book up. In addition to the book, I've got a white paper on financing house hacking. And if you're interested in that white paper, you can text me and just text info to 630-708-7088. Again, just text info to 630-708-7088, and we'll send that white paper along and give you just a little information to kind of do some reading and research or start your research on your own house hack.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely great idea. And if you guys want to consult with either me or Dylan, give us a call. Like I said, you can reach me at 630-921-0611. You know where to reach Dylan. Before we go any further, because we're getting set to wrap up here, I just want to again thank all of our sponsors, Benchmark Mortgage, At Home Title Services, and TrustedAgentUSA.com. All of those businesses can help you guys out a lot when it comes to your real estate goals. You know, and that's the other thing about this. Not everybody is cut out to be a landlord. So, you know, you have to think about this, too, when you're thinking about getting into house hacking, especially if you're looking at 2, 3, or 4 flats or even more doors than that. Are you cut out to be a landlord? Would you say that's a pretty good question to ask yourself?
I think that's a legit question. And one of the things I like, Larry, about house hacking is that it gives you kind of a hands-on experience early, right? So if you turn around and are looking at the multifamily house hack specifically, what you find is you can get into the place. Again, you could use an FHA loan and get in for 3.5% down. And you might decide in 6 months or a year, like, this is not working for me. The tenants are not my bag. But there are a couple of things you could do then. And the first one is you could exit the property and, you know, move on down the road and do something else. But the other thing is you could retain it, hire a management company, and just move out after a year and leave the tenants behind. But the other thing is it'll give you enough education, some real-world education while you're living in the property to understand that if you do hire a manager, that you're going to be in a situation where you know what they're tackling for you. And I think that that's important. You know, in your first property, in your second property, it's probably important to do it hands-on to learn. But it's the sort of thing you can hire a professional for.
Yeah, well, a management company is going to typically cost you, I mean, it could go as high as 12 to 15%, but typically going to cost you
it's normally
about
10 though, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say it's typically between 7 and 10%, and more likely between 8 and 10% is what you're going to pay for a management company to manage your property every month.
So I want to put one more thing out there that we haven't talked about today, but and I don't think we're going to have time to deep dive on it.
Okay.
But one of the things is when you're looking at a live-in flip property that we didn't revisit, there are loan programs, again, getting back to the financing, creating opportunity for you. You can find a place that's in really, really rough shape, and you can finance in the repairs under certain circumstances and hire the contractors and kind of vet out the work up front and put yourself in a situation through a renovation loan with renovation financing. 203K is one of them, but not the only renovation financing available in the market. And renovation financing is kind of cool because some people will fuss, but when you get renovation financing, more often than not, you get what's called a HUD consultant who comes in and kind of quarterbacks the project and vets out the bids and makes sure they're there to protect the lender from loaning too much money or spending too much money on the repairs. And so sometimes buyers feel very adversarial with these guys, but really what they're doing is they're protecting you in the transaction because they're working to protect the lender. Your interests and the lender's interests are aligned in keeping your costs for the rehab under control. But if you can live through a rehab project and get the right deal, you can finance in the renovation.
So like I mentioned earlier, I've done a lot of flips. I've also mentored a lot of investors through their first few flips or multifamily investments. And, some of the things you want to think about when you do these things is having your contractors lined up and, having your ducks in a row, because there's a lot that goes on when you do this.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a bad idea to have somebody mentor you through your first couple of flips, your first couple of investments. That's really all you need. So, again, that's something that I provide. And if anybody out there needs that or is interested in that, give me a call.
That's fantastic. Yeah, look, so I think that, how much time we got? We got a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So, I think, Larry, that when we talk about renovation financing, and mentorship and how to tie this whole thing together, the most important thing for folks is and look, it's in the name, Trusted Agent USA, right? You have to trust the folks that you're working with, and you have to trust that they're going to, dating ourselves as not guys in their 20s. It's in the immortal words of Ronald Reagan, right? Trust but verify. And so the thing is that when you turn around and work with professionals, whether it's contractors, whether it's your real estate person, your mortgage person, you find yourself in a situation where you're relying on their expertise. And one of the things is we sit here as guys who've done this for a long, long time. I joked earlier, real estate never repeats itself, but it rhymes. And we're in a market that we've seen before. And so there's very little. I rarely go through a week, a month in the business where I'm like, wow, I've never seen that before. I've always I've reached a point where I've seen some version of it all the time. Yeah. And so we have an answer and we have a playbook for it. And because we have that answer in that playbook, we put ourselves in a situation where, when you're here to help, you just, you're like, oh, I have here, we do this. Oh, the renovation HUD consultant said that, the costs are too much. So you turn around and call the contractors. You're like, all right, you're overbidding.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not that big a deal. Whereas lots of people will freak out when they get information that's not fantastic news.
Yeah. If you guys, again, are thinking about getting into investing, the best thing to do is hook up with somebody that is either doing it already or get with an agent that like, and trust, that knows the investment market that knows that whole angle, because it's much different than some of the other things you can do in real estate. And if you do it right, it can be very lucrative. So as we wrap up today, Dylan, I just want to thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, Larry. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And
I knew, I was a little nervous at the beginning of the hour that we were going to be able to riff for an hour on house hacking,
and
here we are.
We could do it for another 3 hours.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Devin and what's her name again?
Stephanie.
Okay, that's only the 5th time I've had to ask you your name. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you. And you guys tune in next week to Real Estate Radio. We'll have some more great information, and have a great Labor Day weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, Larry.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now, go to TrustedAgentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience.